Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my June wrap-up. June, as was May, was an amazing reading month for me. I have been having really good luck over the last couple of months, and I think that it mostly comes down to trying to be realistic with my TBRs and do a mixture of books that I have been meaning to get to for a long time, along with books that I've been really excited about. So it's kind of letting my desire to just mood read be on the menu, but also a little tiny bit of structure. So it means that I am slowly getting through my reading goals and feeling accomplished, which is a nice feeling, but also giving myself some flexibility to read what I want, which has been rewarding. So had a great reading month in June. I said May was my best reading month of the year, and now I feel like June was my best reading month of the year. And hopefully in July, I'll be sitting here and saying July was my best reading month of the year, because this is just the year of truly reading the things that I love. So that has been a great experience. I stuck to my TBR very well in June. I read everything on it with the exception of one book. And I did, as I hinted at in my June TBR, put in a book that I thought was going to sneak on there because it was a new release that I went and picked up at the bookstore. So I stuck to things pretty well, actually. Altogether, I read 7 books in the month of June. And how many of them? 1, 2, 3 of them were 5-star reads, which is huge. I think last year I went through the whole year with only a handful of new 5-star reads. So it has been such a relief to pick up books this year that I have loved so much. And as always, I just have my book journal here with me, and I'm going to read through the books in the order in which I read them. So the very first book that I picked up in June, or the very first book that I finished, I guess I started a bunch of things all at the same time, but the very first book that I finished in June was the book Father Material, which was the concluding volume to a series of romance novels by Alexis Hall. So this is a series, the first book in the series is about the child of a rock star who has a really bad reputation, who ends up in the tabloids all the time and is at risk of losing his job. He enters into a fake relationship with a very uptight barrister for the sake of both their reputations. So the barrister needs to prove that he is capable of being in a relationship and he's not so uptight that he can't foster some sort of human connection. And then this young son of a rock star is trying to rehabilitate his image. So that is how the series starts. And this is a series of 3 novels. The first one is called Boyfriend Material. The second is Husband Material. And then this third book is called Father Material. And it is a very interesting take on the idea of parenthood. This tackled a lot of important topics. It was not your traditional, like, we're rushing in to have a baby together. It was talking a lot about, what does it mean to be a parent? What are the different types of parents? And it talked a lot about the mental health system, which this series talks about a lot. The character's mental health is at the forefront of all of the novels, but also the foster care system. And like I said, it is something that is unique to the romance novels that I have read, while still, I think, remaining true to romance as a genre. So I don't think that it topples into just contemporary fiction, which I'm finding is happening a lot with modern romance, at least popular modern romance, like authors like Emily Henry, Alison Cochrane. The more of their books that come out, the more I feel like they're just kind of swerving into contemporary or modern fiction versus fitting the tropes of a traditional romance. But I still think that these books, which I think the series is called London Calling, but don't quote me on that. But I think these books are still firmly rooted in romance. They still follow those kind of like tropes and genre conventions, but they do tackle some of those hard-hitting topics. So I thought that this was a great conclusion. A lot of people did not enjoy the second book, Husband Material, and I think it is my least favorite of the 3. But if you are someone who read Boyfriend Material and you loved it, and then you read Husband Material and you were like, this was not for me, I do think that you could still enjoy Father Material. A lot of the problems that people had with book 2, and I'm trying to be vague to avoid spoilers, but a lot of the things that people did not enjoy about that book, I don't think you find the same things in Father Material. So I think that if you were hesitant about whether or not you were going to pick this up, that you should still give it a go. And that overall, this is a really enjoyable romance series. It is, like I said, a little bit, it's not very spicy, so a lot of the scenes are fade to black. It does have a very particular sort of British humor, so I recommended this series to a friend of mine who really likes to read queer romance novels, and she hated it. She was like, this is garbage. I can't believe that I tried this. So it does have a very particular sense of humor that I really like, but if you don't like it, you'll know very quickly that it's not going to be for you. But if you do like that, and you do like reading romance, I think this is a great series. I enjoyed the way that it all clued up. I think Boyfriend Material is still my favorite because I enjoy the getting together part of romance. That's the part that I like to read about. Established relationship romance is not my favorite kind, but if it is a couple that I've enjoyed following, then I do still read them, and this is the case for what happened here. So very happy with how the series concluded overall. Alexis Hall is a favorite of mine. I enjoy their writing a lot. I think they're really funny, and it's a style that just works for me. It either is going to or it isn't, and it very much does for me. So that was my first read of the month. Very lighthearted with, some, like I said, some hard-hitting topics, but still overall a feel-good book. The second book that I read in June was actually a manga. So that was volume 1 of Bungo Stray Dogs. So I've talked about this series a couple of times on the channel so far this year because I was reading some of the light novels. So Bungo Stray Dogs is a series that I initially picked up as an anime. So there's 5 seasons of the anime out. I watched that and am now going back to read the manga and read the light novels and kind of fill in the gaps. If you are an anime fan and you are a book lover, I would recommend giving this a try. So the premise of Bungo Stray Dogs is that you are following a detective agency. It's called the Armed Detective Agency, and everybody, or almost everybody who works for the detective agency, has a secret power. And those powers are related to the literature that was written by their real life counterpart. So all of the characters, or at least all the main characters, are named after famous Japanese authors. And the powers that they have are linked to either a poem or a short story or a novel written by that author. And it's really cool. If you're a book nerd, then I think you will really like it. It took me a little bit to get into it, and I think that's just because I'm woefully underread in Japanese literature, so I didn't instantly get all the connections between the authors and their work. Once season 2 started, they introduced some American characters, some British characters, some Russian characters, and these were authors with whose works I was quite familiar. And then I started to have a lot of fun. And it has made me read up more on Japanese authors, want to find out more about classic Japanese authors, what the core of their literary canon is. And it's just been a really fun time. So it is an anime with all of the highs and lows of that. It's not an anime where I would say, if you're not an anime fan, this is a great one to pick up because there's a lot of weird stuff in there, a lot of silly stuff. You have to enjoy anime, I think, to watch Bungo Stray Dogs. It would not be my option for anybody's introductory anime. But if you're an anime fan, and you love reading, and you have never seen it, I would recommend it. I think that it's fun. And reading the manga has been great. It's fun to see what they have adapted and not. And I think pretty famously, Bones, which is the studio that animated Bungo Stray Dogs, made some interesting choices. A lot of anime is animated very true to the manga series, but there's been a lot of big changes in Bungo Stray Dogs, even right from the beginning. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is different and maybe picking up on some new information, seeing how events play out in the manga. So going to continue along with this series. And I think I gave volume 1 a 3.5 stars. Again, the start of the story in general is not my favorite, but I do really love these characters now. So going back and rereading about them has been really fun. My third book of the month was my first 5-star, and that is Hearts in Atlantis. So this is by Stephen King, for anybody who doesn't know, and I loved this book. This has catapulted to the top of my Stephen King novels, like my list of favorite Stephen King novels. I can't believe that I just had this sitting here for so long without reading it. I am kicking myself. The concept of Hearts in Atlantis, it's a series of interconnected novellas that all center around the 1970s. A lot of them have to do with the Vietnam War. And the very first novella, which is called Low Men in Yellow Coats, I think, is very, very highly connected to the Dark Tower series. So that is something that obviously made me very happy. I was super excited to see characters that I knew from the Dark Tower series, I recognized from the Dark Tower series, And this book is just the style of Stephen King that I love the most. It's a very intimate story. It's coming of age. It talks about important topics. I think that Stephen King is at the top of his writing game here. And the novellas all interconnect in really interesting ways. It is a mixture of some of his most hyper-realistic fiction with a lot of magical realism mixed in. I think the ending of the collection as a whole is excellent. I don't have any bad things to say about it. Like I said, I loved it. 5 stars. It goes to the top of my favorite Stephen King novels list, and I will certainly reread it. And it made me want to go back and reread The Dark Tower. So for anyone who has been following the channel from before I took the big hiatus knows that I did start a Dark Tower reread that petered off after Wizard and Glass. And now I want to go back, and I don't know if I should just restart at The Gunslinger, which is one of my favorite novels of all time. One of my favorite Dark Tower novels, kind of tied. Sometimes it's number 1, sometimes it's number 2. Just one of my favorite things ever. So should I go back and restart at The Gunslinger, or do I just go in at Wolves of the Kala, which is where I left off last time? I'm not 100% sure. I have a lot of things I want to read this year, so maybe I'll just jump in at Wolves of the Kala, but it put me in a very Dark Tower mood, which, if you cannot tell, is a very giddy mood. I love The Dark Tower, and now I want to go back and reread it. I just recorded my TBR video without putting any Dark Tower on it, and the second I looked at the words Hearts of Atlantis, I was like, maybe I should have put Wolves of the Kala on my July TBR, but anyway, we'll see. I do need to go back and reread The Dark Tower. Hearts of Atlantis, so good. I loved it. Number 4, book 4 of the month was also Stephen King. This was a very Stephen King month for me. And this was a new book. I picked this one up at the bookstore this month, and that was The Long Walk. I had never read The Long Walk. I very much enjoyed it. So this one I gave 4 stars. This is a Bachman book, I believe, or at least was originally published as a Bachman book. And the premise is that there is a competition that is held for young men across America. You can apply, you have to be selected, and then once you are selected and you confirm that you are coming, you cannot back out. And the challenge is just to walk and keep walking until there is only one person left. So there are 100 boys that start off. They start off in Maine, and they just begin to walk, and you have to maintain a certain speed. I think it's 4 miles per hour or something. So you have to walk at 4 miles per hour. And if you pause, you get a warning, and then a second warning, and your third warning is just so. It is kind of a psychological thriller. You're following your main character, who does make a little alliance at the beginning of the walk. There are some friends that he finds, and you find out more about all of these boys' lives the longer you go through the book. And I did really like this one. I think this is, surprise, surprise, a book that has a controversial ending. I think there are some people who really like it, some people who don't like it. And again, surprise of ultimate surprises, I really liked the ending. I'm a huge fan of Stephen King's endings in general, which is not a popular opinion, even sometimes amongst King fans. I'm going to have to do a video sometime tier ranking the endings of Stephen King's books, and I will tag it well so that it can be spoilery, but also people who haven't read everything can just skip over the parts that they need to. But I have a lot of opinions on Stephen King's book endings, and I think the reason that so many of them work for me and do not work for a lot of people is because a lot of them are open-ended. There's a lot of, you need to use your imagination. You need to contemplate the horrors of what these endings could mean and relate them to the story and the characters that you just read about. And I really like that. I know some people don't. My husband, for example, hates an open ending. He wants something definitive. He often wants it to be happy, which is why he doesn't read Stephen King in general. But some people just like that. They need a concrete, definitive ending. They want to be told what happens. I like it sometimes. Actually, I like it a lot of the time when I'm not told what happens. So I think that's why I am more comfortable with Stephen King's endings than a lot of people. But I really liked the ending of this one. The reason it got 4 stars instead of 5 from me is because I think I was expecting it to be more tense. He did a really good job of keeping me interested and engaged about a novel that takes place over a handful of days where you're just following someone walking. That is a difficult thing to do. But for some reason I was expecting it to be more tense. I wanted to feel more like I was on the edge of my seat, and I didn't. And I think I've gotten that from other books. I felt that way when I read Cujo, for example. I felt that way even when I read Carrie. Even though Carrie opens with you knowing what is happening, I still felt more on edge. And I don't know if that was a writing choice or if it was just me and my mood, but it did not get the full 5 stars from me for that reason. But it was still very enjoyable. I had a great time reading it, and I'm glad that I picked it up. So that was The Long Walk. Then we had my book of the month, my book of the year. I imagine this might stay at number 1, but we'll see what else I read throughout the year. But that was Fool's Errand. And for anybody who hasn't seen my reading vlog, it was just a lot of me waxing poetic about Robin Hobb's sentences intermixed with me crying. And not necessarily crying, like I don't want you to take that as a spoiler, like something terrible must have happened. Like I would cry when characters came back that I hadn't seen for a long time. So it was just emotional. I think Robin Hobb just has a way of writing characters that feels so intimate. Being inside Fitz's head is simultaneously so hard and also so rewarding because you get to know him better than almost any other character in fantasy, but also Fitz has got it rough a lot of the time. So I had forgotten how difficult it was to be inside his head, but even if it's difficult, it's a place that I like to be. So this was an absolute 5-star from me. Characterization, prose, plotting, feelings, emotions, everything, just the whole package. Robin Hobb is genius. Fitz is one of the best characters ever written in literature. I take no arguments, and all of the side characters from animal companions to human are perfect, amazing. I love this book. That's all I will say. You can go and watch the vlog if you have also read Fool's Errand because it is spoilery. The 6th book of the month was another 5-star read from me, and one that I'm hoping to get a book review up for. So this is a new book, a new release this year, and that is The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. And this is a book that I thought was a romantasy book going into it, and I was very mistaken. I think I either heard in a video or saw someone on Discord type that this was an anti-romantasy, which is a perfect way to describe it. It is about a young girl named Wei who is selected to be a concubine for the emperor in waiting. And so she has to move into the rear palace and join the other hopeful concubines and learn how to navigate palace life while also getting to know her potential husband-to-be. And it is simultaneously very poetic, as the title would suggest, and also incredibly brutal. There are terrible, awful things that happen in this book, and I thought this was going to be a rivals to lovers, enemies to lovers sort of situation. It is not. It is just a cutthroat arena where a young girl who is poor and has had a difficult life and wants the best for both her family, or for her family, her village, and her country in general, and what she has to endure and what she has to do to try to achieve that goal. So it is a beautiful mixture of character development, of the exploration of trauma and how power corrupts and twists even the strongest bonds, and whether or not there is a chance for redemption. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be bad versus good? There's a lot of big topics that are handled very gracefully. It is, as I said, very poetic to the point where I thought sometimes, is this disgusting me to the level that it should because the language is so beautiful? The answer is yes. By the end, I was very disturbed by some of the things that had happened, but it was also a beautifully written novel, and it makes me want to check out anything that this author comes out with. It was an excellent reading experience. I had a great time reading it, and yeah, I would really like to do a book review, so hopefully I will be able to get around to that. And then for a somewhat lackluster end of the wrap up, the last book of the month, number 7, was just another volume of the Bungo Stray Dogs manga. So I don't have a ton to say about that. That one was a 4-star. The plot is starting to pick up. Obviously, the pacing is a lot faster in the manga than it is in the anime. So I am looking forward to the first volume where I get to see my favorite character, whose name is Chuya. I'll put a little picture of him up. He is the best. I love his character in the anime, and I'm excited to see him come in, and I'm assuming it's either going to happen in volume 3 or volume 4, and that makes me want to pick it up all the faster because I think that he's awesome. But that's it. That was my month of June reads. They were so good. I had such a great reading month. I loved so much of what I read. And if you have read any of these books, please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts about them. If you haven't read these, please let me know what you read in the month of June, and I will see you with another video soon. Bye.